Hello and welcome to Quadriga, DW's international talk show coming to you from Berlin. I'm Brian Thomas. There's been a seismic political shift in Turkey, where the opposition CHP party has won the vote for mayor in Turkey's biggest city and financial capital, Istanbul. This man, Ekrem İmamoğlu, has called his victory a new beginning for the country. One of his fellow party leaders says it is now time to end President Erdogan's, quote, one-man regime and build a democratic system. Days after the vote, Erdogan himself promised to draw lessons from it, saying he understood the messages given by the people. Turkey, is Erdogan losing his grip? That's our topic here on Quadriga, and to talk about that, I'm joined here in the studio by Cagri Özdemir. He works for DW's Turkish Department and says, a great moment for Turkish democracy, but the real struggle has only begun. Alan Posener is a commentator for the daily Welt. He believes Erdogan has lost the trust of the educated elites, but he is far from finished. And Laura Lale Kabis is an analyst for Turkish politics for the Berlin-based think tank German Council on Foreign Relations. She thinks, quote, the result of the local elections in Istanbul and other metropolitan cities indicate a shift in political conditions in Turkey. Well, thanks to all of you for being here, and thanks to our viewers from wherever you are as well. Laura, if we could start with you. What's happening in Turkey, and what are the voters in Istanbul saying right now?
Well, I think what we've seen in the municipal elections, not just in Istanbul, but also already in March, is that the AKP is losing its grip, especially in the big cities in Turkey. The cities that, you know, obviously have like large amounts of population, that are the economic centres of Turkey. And Istanbul especially obviously was, you know, really important for the opposition to win, for the AKP, obviously a very hurtful loss. And I think what we see is that, first of all, the opposition, which is quite different factions of people actually, could unite around this idea of saying, you know, kind of like we are united against the system of Erdogan, against this like one-man regime. And at the same time, we also see that, you know, more and more supporters of the AKP and the MHP coalition are actually disappointed in the government and are also themselves not turning out to vote as much as they did before. Maybe some shifted their votes.
Disappointment in the AKP might be an understatement. Cagri, what do you think triggered this result?
I think it has multiple factors, obviously, and economic conditions has always been one of the dominant forces.
The economy is very big in this, isn't it?
And in Turkey, if we look at the breaking points, when we're talking about the similar seismic shifts in the political environment in Turkey over the past 50 years, we always see the economy as one of the most important underlying causes of that. So when the public, when the people on the street are having a problem with bringing the bread at home, they are looking for alternatives, and like discourse might be a good driving force, or other political factors might be good driving forces. But at the end of the day, economics and the way that people can make an earning makes the decision. And I think one of the main reasons why people decided to jump off the boat right now is because of the political economic situation in the country.
Economics is so determined in a vote, especially one like this for a city like Istanbul, for big cities. Alan, when you look at this, is it just the economics of the background to this vote, or is it also Erdogan potentially losing his political instincts? I mean, he's the one who called for this rerun vote.
Right, and that was a huge mistake, because the first time his party lost, I think, by 13,000 votes. Now they lost by
700 to 800.
Yeah, 80,000.
770.
800,000.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, incredible. And people, you know, put off their holidays to be there and to be able to vote, or came back from their holidays or from wherever they were to vote against Erdogan. So this was a huge miscalculation. So people, but in spite of this, if you look at the map of Turkey, the sort of election map of Turkey, and you say that the CHP is red, you've got a red rim, the part of Turkey that tourists see. You know, Istanbul, Izmir, down there, Antalya, and so on. They're where Western-looking people, educated people who have to do with tourism are situated. They voted against Erdogan. But the huge inside, except for Ankara, is still power base. I mean, where the rural areas, you know, the poor parts of the country, the religious parts of the country, people where Sunni religious is very strong, they still vote for the AKP. And unless you can bridge that gap, Turkey is going to fall apart as it has so often before.
We're going to talk about bridging that gap and that divide coming up in the program. I'd like to go back to Laura and what you were saying about the AKP. There is talk right now of a split in the governing party, in the AKP. Do you think that's a possibility?
Well, I mean, the rumours have been going on for quite a while now that prominent figures within the AKP, like Ali Babacan or Davutoglu and Abdullah Gül, are considering forming their own movements, their own party, or splitting away from the AKP. And I think, if that's the case, if we will see that, the election has made that probably more likely. That they will see this as an opportunity now to kind of move forward with such ambitions. And there has been kind of differences in opinion within the AKP for quite a while, and we've seen much more criticism coming out of the AKP itself.
Charles, do you think that is something Erdogan's struggling with right now, keeping the party together?
I totally agree with this point of view because Erdogan has already been losing the people that he started his own cause with when he formed the AKP back in the beginning of 2000s. So the figures like Ali Babacan, Abdullah Gül, Ahmet Davutoglu, Bülent Arınç, and so on and so forth. These figures were belonging to their cause, and that cause was kind of actually bringing together the conservative masses with the center-right leaning people in Turkey. And the AKP has always been a coalition of different center-right forces, or sometimes to an extreme right, but those forces in Turkey. So its base never represented some sort of a political Islam that is being depicted all the time. And once that coalition starts to shatter, and I want to go back to the economy, and economy is one of the reasons why it would shatter, then you might start seeing those movements coming from within the party. And if you add the fact that Erdogan has managed to antagonize the people that he started with, and he surrounded himself with a bunch of yes men over the past few years, then he started losing his grip. So it actually now the whole party is based on his charisma and nothing else, because they are not producing any sort of policies over the past 5 years.
Okay, so you're saying there is a possibility that he could lose his grip on power. Would that mean, from what I'm hearing, is there's a possibility that he could be replaced by a broader conservative coalition? Would that get a majority in the country?
I don't think so, and I don't think he would lose his grip within his own party. But his own party eventually might lose its grip over the government. So, if we go to an election sometime soon, it's not going to happen before 2022 at least, unless there's a early election called. Then the AKP might not be able to secure a majority within the parliament. But that's far ahead. But I think we should focus on right now how his party will manage to survive this
crisis that it's experiencing right now that's related to the vote and the economy. Well, there is a consensus right now that this vote was free and fair. And as Alan was pointing out, it's also pointed out that there's a deep divide in Turkish society between conservative voters, mainly in the countryside, and the more liberal voters in urban areas.
I'm so excited. The right person has won. Justice has won. Love and unity won. The people in Istanbul have won. Everything's great now. We will work for a brighter future together, shoulder to shoulder. Really, I'm so happy.
Change was necessary. People had enough of the incumbent government. Turkey needs fresh blood, new rhetoric, and a new face. I think this result is a reflection of that.
I think people don't see the good things Tayyip Erdogan has done. We're all sad. Our relatives came here from other cities just for today. Now we're so disappointed.
The government mustn't allow him to serve as mayor.
Okay, we just heard one AKP voter there saying the government should step in and overturn the popular vote. That was the last soundbite we listened to. How deep are the divisions between AKP voters and the opposition? Shadab.
I think the way that the government has been playing this whole blame game over the past few years because of the negative things going on in the country, that has a resonance within the party supporters, within the masses. But I think that resonance is no longer as valid as it used to be. So, of course, there's this polarization. Of course, there's this divide within the society. And I think what Ekrem İmamoğlu did, just for the municipality, but it's a big discourse. And that discourse is based on not polarization, but having a comprehensive approach, trying to reach out to everyone. And I think it turned out to be a good strategy because we're seeing that from a few thousand votes, we have hundreds of thousands of vote difference in just 3 weeks later. That means that there is a huge shift from the AKP, from the people who voted for the AKP candidate and then shifted to İmamoğlu. So Turkey is actually very tired of this polarized language. There were 8 elections in the country over the past 6 years. Can you imagine that? Almost one election, including local elections and referendums. So people are tired of elections and you cannot do business when you're in an election environment where you're waiting for what's going to happen after the elections. And as you are tired from that kind of environment, and as you're tired from that kind of a political division and polarization, then you start shifting to a person who's giving you hope. And İmamoğlu managed to actually gather the hope of so many people. And I think he's going to be, over time, more successful as he will continue playing this game because they managed to find a good strategy and they are developing that. And it's just the beginning for them, but it's going to be a long and hard way to go and challenge the government itself.
Alan, when you hear about this type of political strategy, do you think it could be a winner to bring a country together?
You know, I really don't know enough about the CHP and İmamoğlu to judge that. But all I'm saying is Erdogan anticipated this. This is why he changed the system, so we now have a presidential system. If he was just prime minister of Turkey, like Theresa May in Britain, he might be out tomorrow. But as a president, he's in. Also, don't forget that there are hundreds, if not thousands, of journalists in jail, of teachers, of people accused of being members of the Gülen sect. And before that, there are also people in jail who he, together with Gülen, he got rid of out of the military and so on. So I really wouldn't underestimate Erdogan's power. He may have lost the mass of people in Istanbul and Ankara and Izmir, but he has, as long as the military is still behind him and he's purged the military, as long as he's the president, the question is, can İmamoğlu and the CHP and the opposition keep up this momentum across the country?
I think the real question should be, in Turkey, potentially, will power shift hands in a peaceful transformation? I think that should be the question that needs to be asked. Because, as you said, and you're right in that, the whole system is now structured in a way that Erdogan keeps his grip over the country.
Which has made it less stable, in fact.
It is less stable. Politically, economically, internationally, it is less stable. But at the same time, as I was saying, the whole system is actually kind of keeping him in power. And this, like I was trying to say earlier, the Turkish government did not develop a viable policy, a policy that a state needs to address to the needs of its population in the past 5-6 years. So the whole system is designed upon keeping a personality on power. And that is one of the weakest points, but at the same time, that is one of the strongest points of the opposition.
And not to be underestimated either. I mean, when we look at it...
It shouldn't be, but it's at the same time a house of cards.
It's a house of cards, but we have to look at this base that Alan pointed out is strongly behind Erdogan. I mean, when you look at the numbers, 45% of Istanbul voted against İmamoğlu. I mean, that's an important point. And for the AKP's candidate, how do they view, Laura, where they want the country headed? This 45% in Istanbul, not in the conservative areas out in the countryside. Where do they want to see the country headed?
Well, I think first of all, I would say, Istanbul also has very conservative areas, so I wouldn't kind of make this distinction, just like say, it's the liberal Istanbul and the conservative
Important
countryside.
point. Yeah.
And I think, I think for a lot of people, there is still the belief in the president and that Erdogan can deliver. There's a belief that, for them, this is still the right direction, even if it's not perfect, but it's still the better option compared to the DGAP or other opposition parties. So I think, obviously, the support for Erdogan or the AKP isn't going to go away in like a day. And I think a lot of people still also think at the times where the AKP really did develop the economy really well. They look at, the improvements that have been made to Istanbul. And so I think it's a question of, kind of where do they see the future, but also kind of who do they believe can deliver, a solution to the problems and who is a better alternative?
Shada, you have an economic analysis here. You think political Islam is secondary to how the economy is going. But what do the conservative voters, what does the base for Erdogan want to see for the nation? What are their interests? What are their goals?
In reference to my words earlier, like the AKP has always been a coalition of different forces within the society, not necessarily coming from a very conservative background nor a political Islamist worldview. So those center-right forces have come together and the AKP managed to deliver within the first decade what they were looking for. They were looking for more representation. They were looking for more opportunities in economic ways. And we've seen this huge boom in the countryside, in Anatolia, that new entrepreneurs came out, new holdings were formed, new companies started. So the AKP managed to create its own kind of a middle-class base at which people are enjoying the things that modern capitalism can deliver in their own way. So this is still valid, and I think one of the reasons why the government party still has almost half of the support within the society is because
they have
of
delivered.
that structure, because they delivered that. But at the same time, they are failing more and more, day by day, to continue delivering that. So that's why it might shift, the power might shift.
Okay, let's talk about the possible power shift. Who is the man that millions of people in Turkey are pinning their hopes on, Ekrem İmamoğlu? Let's find out.
Ekrem İmamoğlu addresses his supporters. He presents a young and dynamic image. His slogan is "Everything will be fine." The 49-year-old has managed to present himself as worldly and open, yet conservative and religious too. His style contrasts with the authoritarianism of President Recep Tayyip Erdogan. The central-left candidate of the Republican People's Party managed to garner votes from many Kurds and AK party supporters as well. He presents himself as someone who wants to and can unite the people. This is not a victory. This is a new beginning. I would like to say that as of tomorrow, as mayor, I will treat 16 million people equally. The mayor's office in Istanbul is said to be the key to the office of the presidency of Turkey. Could İmamoğlu pose a threat to Erdogan?
Alan, what do you think? Can he pose a threat to Erdogan? Can he bring the nation together behind his leadership?
I think not alone. If he can form a coalition with the liberal elements who supported the AKP or were part of the AKP, he must reach out to the more religious parts of society. Then, if he can do that, great.
Shada?
I agree with that. I think so far he has been playing the game right. And if he doesn't fail in his game and if he continues gathering the masses behind him, gets the support, then he might eventually challenge the leadership in the country.
What do you think, Laura? Is he ready for national politics?
Well, I think, I agree in that I think he has been playing that really well right now. The question is, can he actually keep that up? Because at the moment, he's trying to unify the more conservative, as well as the nationalist, as well as the Kurdish, as well as the secular liberals. So, I think the question is, can he keep that up, what he has been doing right now, really successfully?
Well, jailing political opponents is one method the Erdogan government has used, as it sees it, to guarantee national unity. Well, it points to the country's failed coup, the Kurdish separatist movement, and the ongoing violence in Syria as threats to national unity. Erdogan points to the country's failed coup as the primary element there. But as critics say, he's using these very real challenges as excuses to crack down on people who do not share his vision of where Turkey should go. 16 of them are in court right now for what's known as the Gezi trial. They're some of the many thousands who've been jailed for their political leanings.
The Silivri court and prison complex west of Istanbul is said to be the biggest of its kind in Europe. The courtrooms are mainly for political trials. 16 representatives of Turkey's civil society are in the dock. Lawyers, architects, and artists accused of planning and financing an attempt to oust Erdogan. Their protests began peacefully in 2013. They were primarily directed against plans to build on the site of Gezi Park in Istanbul. Yet allegations of corruption and nepotism in President Erdogan's government grew louder and louder. The more violence the police and state used against the demonstrators, the more nearby residents supported the protest. Demonstrations took place in other Turkish cities as well. People were killed and wounded when Erdogan ultimately had Gezi Park cleared in June 2013. Back then, Erdogan was already putting the blame on a terrorist conspiracy with financial backing from abroad, while his supporters hailed him as a hero. How stable is Erdogan's government now?
When we talk about stability for the Erdogan government, we also have to talk about the international picture. Turkey's having a lot of problems right now with the United States. The United States is threatening sanctions against Turkey. Can Erdogan, Shada, afford to shift, as he is right now, towards Russia, buying the S-400 missile system, and risk his relations with the West?
I think this question has two answers. One of them is that Erdogan has been playing sporadically this game by trying to align with the antagonists of the West and get some reaction to it, and then playing into that in a way that he would gather the actual support that he's looking for. So it's kind of like a leverage game for him, if I may put it that way. So it has been tried in the past, and it worked to an extent. Sometimes it doesn't. So one answer is that if he keeps playing this game, he might eventually lose all the support that's coming from the West. So that's one thing. But the other thing is that he should not underestimate, and I'm sure he doesn't, underestimate the fact that the boom, the economic boom that Turkey went through over the past 15 years was thanks to mostly foreign direct investment that came to Turkey.
From the West.
And that was mainly from the West. And that, yeah, if we want to continue, but that is some sort of important factors that Turkey should consider at the moment, because that money kind of dried out now.
Alan, why would Erdogan risk relations with the West at a time when he's experiencing so many domestic challenges? We look at the vote in Istanbul, by buying the Russian S-400 anti-missile system.
Well, I'll tell you why. Because we let him down. Because we lost Syria. Because when the West said that, you know, precondition, we wanted to get rid of the regime in Syria, and we would do that by supporting the opposition, Erdogan went fully for that game and demanded that Assad be removed. Now the West lost to Russia and Iran, who are proxies of China, in Syria. Now, if I were Erdogan, I would be hedging my bets, which is exactly what he's doing. He's not sure who's going to be the dominant power in the region in 5 or 10 years, because America seems disengaged and Europe is busy chewing up itself. So, you know, we need to get our act together if we want Erdogan to be on our side. It's really up to us.
Laura, we saw there the Gezi trial, the suppression of opposition voices. There's a number out there, 140,000 people, 140,000 people have been arrested. Are you worried about a crackdown domestically, a further crackdown, when you look at Turkey today after this vote as a possible response to the CHP's victory?
Well, I think the crackdown has been going on continuously. So I don't expect it to go down. I don't expect it to die down in any way. You know, we've just seen like the start of the Gezi trials. You know, there was this threat that, you know, he might, you know, that Imamoglu might get, you know, sued for insulting someone. So I don't think that this is going to die down. I don't think we're going to see like a kind of a peak in crackdowns all of a sudden again, but I definitely don't think that it's going to go down.
Çağlar, what do you think?
I think I agree with her, and at the same time, I think this Gezi trial has a symbolic value because Gezi, for many people in Turkey, including the government circles, was when the downturn started for the government. So, like I was saying, since Gezi, the government did not produce a viable policy for Turkey.
And we'll see if they'll come up with one now. I'd like to thank all of our guests for coming in today. Thank you so very much. And our viewers for joining us, of course, as well. For me, Brian Thomas, and the entire Quadriga team, take care. Until next time.